Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I am excited to have Angela Navarra back on. We had talked about freelancing as an illustrator and as a designer, making collections, doing, having an agent. We're going to dig into that a little bit more because we barely even scraped the surface with the answers. So I'm going to make my questions short and sweet, but I want you to give just a real quick 5-minute background about you, a little bit of your work history, and then kind of what you're doing now, just in case somebody didn't come to the last show. So Angela, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. So I'm an illustrator and designer. I freelance and I work part-time right now because I'm home taking care of my son on a couple days a week, and then a few days a week I'm able to work and nights. But I primarily work in children's publishing. So, but I love like lettering. I work with licensing. I work with licensed properties as an illustrator and as a designer, creating style guides and all. I like doing a lot of things.
So I think it's good to have multiple things that you're doing because it allows you to be more marketable, because then you don't have all your eggs maybe in one basket if you're just doing book publishing and you just aren't getting enough. So I know Josh Lewis is in kind of kids as well. So I'm sure he will enjoy this episode. Right, Josh?
Awesome.
But so I think that it's good that you kind of have, and he kind of spreads himself out as well, because you just never know when things are coming. But one of the things I think you've done really well is that you've still had personal projects. You do juggle being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And you have had an agent, but then you also get work on your own. And so that's kind of a tricky thing as well. And one of the things I also found really fascinating about your story. So you've had an agent, you've had multiple agents, you've tried people out, you kind of went the Goldilocks method, right? You had one that was not so great, another one not perfect, and then you found kind of a right fit. But then you also get work on your own. So last time you really shared a lot about your journey in this kind of getting an agent and working as a freelancer.
Yes.
You've learned a lot of positive and negatives about having an agent.
Yes.
And working with them. What would you, just to kind of get this agent stuff out of the way, what kind of advice would you give somebody who's looking for an agent, and why? What would be some advantages? Like Jacob over in Portugal, would it be an advantage for him to have an agent stateside? Or do you know what I mean? Like some of the things that maybe distance prohibits or something.
You know, I feel like because there's so many different avenues to connect with everybody, I feel like distance really doesn't play that big for in my experience. Because I have the agent that I currently have is in the UK, and they definitely have more connections, but they also have a wide reach in the United States as well. I think probably it opens up a different avenue for my work that I can't reach. So having like somebody else, like no one's asked me that quite. That's a great question. So I'm like, well, actually, like there's people that have been interested in my work that I probably would have never been able to reach because they're in Europe. But all my clients that I've gotten on my own are from the United States. So I think it actually works. I kind of like it.
Is your agent in America, or are they
They're in the UK.
Okay.
The other agents I had were in the United States. I never got any work from any European companies with the other two agents. But with this one, there's definitely a greater reach to have that. And plus they have a lot of connections in the United States too, in children's publishing. Which is awesome. So yeah, I guess it does make a difference depending on your agent's connections. Yeah. At first I said no, but yes.
But what would you tell somebody? Like, how would you tell somebody to? This was one of the things I thought you had such great insight with, because you did kind of have the Goldilocks story.
Yeah.
You had things to look for, and some things are personality wise, right? There are things that might work for somebody else, but it didn't work for you. Can you just share a little bit about what you would be looking for and some things that maybe in the beginning you didn't know to look for?
To look for what?
In an agent, like in an agent, somebody representing you.
Okay, so I think that whatever artist looking for an agent should really know more or less the kind of work that they're interested in getting. Like if, you know, you're interested in getting editorial work or advertising, or you just want to do just licensing, you shouldn't have that filter when looking at different agents, because at first I was like just sending my work to everybody and anybody that'll take it. And I didn't really understand the different industries as well as I do now, but I was like, they're an art agent.
Right.
Awesome. If somebody's interested, yeah, all the better. But like when I learned to have to zero in and really, because I tried a bunch of different types of projects and I realized, ooh, I definitely want to get into doing licensing. Go try to see what their portfolio is in that arena, because they'll have the greatest connections to get you that kind of work.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So, all right. So, what were some of, one of the things I asked you, I was like, with a contract, do you have to, if you get work, do you have to pay your agent that? And you said no, because you've worked it out in your contract with that agent.
Yes.
But so those are some like super insights that maybe you wouldn't have known as your very first agent, but now, since you've been down this road before, now you know what to ask for. I guess that's kind of some of that advice that's just nuggets that I didn't even know we could ask for that, or I didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's definitely one thing, because there have been clients that I've worked with for years that I spent a lot of my own time forming these relationships. And, you know, there's a section on the contract and you could always talk to your agent about that. If someone's about to sign you, and you put down all the names that you have worked with, all your clients that you don't feel like it's fair. Honestly, I have had some clients for like 4 or 5 years and I'm like, well, they're my client, you know, and I've really worked hard on this relationship, and they're totally cool with it. You just really have to remember, even if there are a couple of people that I forgot to write down because it's not work that I consistently get from them, but I have cultivated these relationships, so I've forgotten. But really make sure, like, just put on anybody that you can. Like, right, you're not gonna like lose out just by you're just maintaining that relationship, and just be as clear as possible. And what else? There were other.
So what are some other things that you've made sure were in your contract? And is your contract, do you re-sign it every year? Is it a 3-year contract?
Yeah. So we re-sign every year. And I mean, you're supposed to. I guess I have it, actually. That's a good reminder. But yeah. And it's a good time to like review what things are going on that you're happy with and what that you want to improve upon. You know, like maybe you'd want to have more meetings with your agent to go over trends, or maybe you want to see, like, you know, just a check-in, like what's going on, what's topical right now. Yeah. So yearly is or maybe there's some terms to your contract that you want to change, or, you know, that client that I forgot, which I'm remembering that right. I'd like to add, that I, you know, don't work with all the time, but I've known them for years. So it just gives you an opportunity to do that. And everything is negotiable. The first time I received a contract, I was like, I got a contract and I'm so close to signing it. I'm so excited. Yeah. But, you know, they want you. If you have a contract, they're interested in working with you. And this is just the beginning of you guys, you know, you and your agent really opening the lines of communication. And if this part is already going to be difficult with your agent, it really foreshadows down the road how your relationship is going to be with this agent. And it might not be the worst thing if they're already being difficult to be like, you know what, I think I'm just going to move on. So it's don't be scared. I was really scared at first, and I was like, I want to negotiate the rate. Is this rate normal? Is this percentage normal?
But it's not only rate, right? It could also be time frame, or it could be amount of projects, the scope of projects. And those are things I think you need to talk with your agent about. Is here's the type of work I'd like to do. Here's the time frame that it takes me to do something like this. And then I'd like to do, you know, 18 of these a year, or 4 of these a year, or whatever. I guess it's having some of those kind of, and if you're new, you may not know. So
Yeah.
it could be, hey, how many is asking that question? How many pieces do you think that I could, and that I could do in a year or in 3 months? You asking your agent, how many would they be able to fit you with? And obviously it's just a number. They can't for sure guarantee that.
Yeah, exactly.
But, it's kind of like, and then with those trends, I think that that's what we're going to get to a little bit later is because really you have to continually work new work. And that's personal projects, or that's things that are on the side, or it's like time you have for doing these research, new things, because that's where trends go. And so having these conversations about trends with your agent or with other designers and illustrators is really critical, because you can't probably just do the same thing you did 10 years ago and still be making a living, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's some work that I have that I'm like, wow, I made that card 10 years ago that works. And sometimes, so you just got to keep fresh. And you really got to like just see what's out there, even when you go into shops, or, and see the kind of imagery that they're using on clothing, on linens, on baby swaddles, it's just really good to expose yourself to all that constantly. And then to have your agent kind of confirm like, oh yeah, these are these animals are really hot right now. Is there any way you could incorporate these animals into your card design or into your patterns and things like that? So so they really have like, I spend time, and unfortunately not as much as I used to, researching trends. I love it. I could like really get sucked into the vortex of the internet for like hours. And I'm like, man, I just spent 3 hours looking up different kinds of unicorn. Like, I was like, oh man, I really miss being able to do that. Like I used to do stuff like that all the time, but now I'm like, I need to condense because I just don't have with a kid. I just don't have as much the luxury to do that as often. And, at night when he goes to sleep, I'm like, I'm going to look up sloths for like 4 hours. And then I'm like, I'm just like so tired. I'm like, I'm so tired, right? I can't do it. Yeah. But
okay. So I feel like we've covered that one. So sometimes it feels like we just need an agent to get a big break, I think, or we need a break to get the bigger client work. Or do you think having an agent was key, or do you think having an agent was key to kind of breaking into a new industry like licensing, or do you feel like that didn't make a difference?
A little bit, I'd have to say like maybe 50-50, because they shed a lot of insight as to the way the trends and what's going on. And they have connections, like direct connections with licensors and companies to pitch your work to. But I also have posted a lot of my stuff on social media and built my own contacts, and I've gotten some awesome projects just on my own. Like one of my favorites was working on baby swaddles, and I got that. Like I've gotten projects like that on my own. But the agents are constantly like, I've heard that they pitched my work to TJ Maxx and Target and things like that. I didn't have connections like that, but art directors are always looking. Like they're looking on Instagram, they're looking on Dribbble. I mean, I just got my first editorial assignment through Dribbble, which they were like, we saw your lettering. And I'm like, how awesome. I've been wanting to get my work into magazines for so long. And it wasn't through my agent. It was because I had a Dribbble account.
Right.
They're always looking. And even when I look for illustrators, I don't only look through agents. I look on Instagram. I look on Pinterest. I look I look on Behance. I look on all these different, and you just find I'm always pleasantly surprised, and I always love reaching out to an illustrator and asking them for samples and starting a new relationship. It's easy to go to an agent website when you know that agent kind of specializes in, a certain type of certain illustrators that you're interested in hiring. It is easy, but then there's times when you're like, I want to see what I could find out there. And we're always looking. People are always looking for illustrators via social media?
So this is a great question. This doc has this because of the social media. So did you ask that the person who you just got from Dribbble? Did you ask them if they were searching through like hashtags, or was it an organic search and they were just looking and they found you? Do you know which one?
That's a great question. I didn't ask. I didn't ask if she found me through hashtags. She just told me she found me through Dribbble. So I don't know, maybe she put in like, lettering, because I know you could put tags on each of your pieces.
Right.
I mean, when I look, I search for specific things. Like if I'm looking for someone to draw a dolphin, I want to see like all the people that have drawn dolphins and what kind of dolphin. I mean, It's really going to streamline the process. But if you see an amazing illustrator, and I'm sure, you could ask him to do a dolphin sample. So it's just about, like taking the time to just look through everything, and keeping your work current. Because when you post more, you're at the top of the feed and you're seen more. So sharing whatever, you'll never know whose attention you're going to get, really.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So being on Dribbble has been, do you have the HireMe button chosen?
I do, because I pay for an account.
Yeah. And it's like $25 a year.
Yeah. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. And it's so easy to post on there too, because there's other websites that like I've advertised on, that are just so tedious to update, and it just really discourages me from sharing any work. But they're so easy. It's like share a shot and just put it up there, and it's so easy. It's so awesome, and you don't have to be like paralyzed. Like sometimes I'm like, this isn't really where I don't care. I'm just going to share it. I'm going to stop doing that. So just share your process. It's awesome.
So do you think that I think you talked about this a little bit about making connections in the industry with art directors, because art directors are the ones that are contacting the agents. Art directors, this could be editorial. Can you hear that loud noise?
I could. What is that? Is that like
they're doing screen printing, and they are not supposed to be pressure washing during this.
Is that what that is? Okay.
That is. I'm going to text that professor, because they're not supposed to do it during this 1 hour. But all right. So anyway, I just wanted to know if you guys could hear it. But so how do you start? Like, how would you start a relationship with an art director? Maybe if it's somebody who, maybe it's editorial, since you hadn't ever done editorial, and now maybe you have a job doing editorial, or if maybe it's licensing. How would you start that? Because obviously this has happened, or what would you do to kind of woo them? Because obviously you've niched down now, you know the specifics of the industry. How would you do that?
That's tough, because I don't know, like it was a tough area to get into, because I don't have connections within the editorial and magazine industry. And there were things that I cold emailed. Like I remember wanting to do illustration for Real Simple, or like there are these magazines where I see that my illustration style we have a similar aesthetic. So I thought of reaching out, and I cold emailed a couple of people, and I didn't hear a response, unfortunately. I would probably try to find them on LinkedIn too. Okay. I think that's really, cause I've done stuff where I'm like, oh, art director, Real Simple, or creative director, so-and-so. And I friend request them with like a small note, not just a generic, like, right, I'd like to add you to my LinkedIn network. I'm like, oh, awesome. So yeah, just something a little personal. I'm a big fan of your magazine, and I love the work that you do, and I'd love to connect with you. And if they accept, then you kind of go in and like send them that's what I've done. I send my website, and I'm like, I would love the opportunity to work with you. Here's my work. Let me know when you have a chance, like, anything that we could work on together, or just if I could add you to my mailing list. That's always an in for me. Right. Like, hey, I should send an email every month, but I haven't sent one in like 3 months. Yeah. So like I send out an email about my work, and usually I get a yes. So that's another way to kind of
start that
relationship. And then sometimes they'll even respond to the emails that I send, and they're like, this is awesome. We were just working on, birds or like, cat illustrations, and this is so topical, or like that you did this lettering project because we need script lettering for this. And just because it doesn't happen immediately, like it might happen. It's good to have their information and to keep that connection going, so that's really one way that I've been doing it.
All right. So asking you about social media. So how often are you trying to post? Because obviously sometimes with projects, you are on an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and you can't post. So how do you keep your feed fresh? Is this through personal projects, or do you just post once a week, or do you have kind of a system? And maybe you don't have a system down yet now, but you're working towards one, or you have had one in the past, but now your kid's bigger and takes more time. So, can you kind of talk about that? Because I don't think there's a recipe, right? I think it's going to be different for everybody.
Yes.
But I also think we forget, or we think, oh, well, nobody responded to this. But I also think it's about fresh being top of mind. Like you said, the more you post on Dribbble, the better you're
remember you.
Yeah. Seen in feeds.
Yes. So, so basically I do lately what I've been doing, because I'm always nervous about sharing something before it's published, I'll take like a section of something that I'm working on, like an interestingly cropped section of the work that I'm doing, or I'll be pretty vague about what I'm working on. So I don't want to be specific, but I'll say working on this illustration working on this lettering project, and I don't say who it's for or what it's for, but I just take like a crop of it before. So that's one way to get around like sharing, because you're not really sharing the whole piece, you're sharing like a part of it.
So where are you sharing? So Jacob asked, do you also post this on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I do. I have. Oh, sorry.
So what platform? So Dribbble, or would you show a partial piece on Dribbble?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I would show.
So Dribbble,
LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I'll share snippets of it with, and also a good thing that I'm trying to get into right now is kind of, especially on LinkedIn, because art directors will take your screenshot and save it, and they won't remember who did it. So it's always good to put I put copyright senorinanavarra.com, so they'll know that it's my work, and they'll be able to go to the website. So you should always be, as much as possible,
branded.
Putting that little brand. Like it doesn't have to be like in your face interrupting your artwork, but we're always like pulling stuff. And I've done that so many times where I'm like, crap, who illustrated this?
Right.
And it doesn't say it. And I'm like, oh, she would have been perfect, or he would have been perfect. And so that's a really good thing just to get into the habit of doing, and just save basically I save like an Illustrator file of it, and I just slap it on. I just drag it onto my JPEG just to keep it as easy as possible, and you don't have to do it every time, because it's annoying, so yes. So, and I also have a calendar invite that reminds me to share things.
That's a great idea.
Yes, because I seriously get so wrapped up in my life that I forget to do these things. And it's like, share to Dribbble, Instagram, and it actually tells me and I move it around every week. So every Friday.
So it's different every week.
Yeah. Yeah. So I try to circulate, but I put a list of all the social media accounts that I want to share to, because I forget. I forget, if Instagram is top of mind, I'll only share on Instagram. And then I look at my little calendar invite. I'm like, oh, this is something that I could actually put on Pinterest because it's finished.
Right.
So I don't share work that's not, that's work that's, So then I'll remember to see all those things, because I forget, especially lately, my memory is I'm like, where are my glasses? Oh my God, they're on my face. They're on my face. I've done that 8 times in the past month. Yes.
I love that. I've also done the same. So how often is it? Once a week that you're sharing, and you just move it around to different times?
I have, yes. So I have it on my calendar that I'm sharing once a week, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't really have anything to share. So then I just move it to the next Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. So you did, because I'm like, I don't need to add pressure to myself in this arena. So I'm like, bloop, let's just move it to the next week, and then I'll get to it. Yeah.
So you're not like over posting at 1 week and posting 18 things, or would you spread that out? Like, okay, well, I have this thing, I can post it next week. Are you doing any kind of planning like that?
I do. I try to, but there's some weeks where I'm like, I want to share 2 things, and I won't share like more than like 5 in a week. I just that's just me. But like, I notice some illustrators are constantly sharing, which I wish I could do that. I don't have enough work to share. So
well, I think that's hard. It's because some of these projects take a long time.
They do.
I think sharing snippets or detailed parts, I think, is a tremendous nugget. So I think that's definitely something we all can take away today.
Yeah.
But I do think that we forget. I love the idea about doing the thing in the calendar reminder.
Yes, it's so helpful. It's like, it was one of the best things that I could do to just like keep on reminding myself, like, update your website. And I also put like update my website in there too. I just need to. And then sometimes you're like, oh, these things just go hand in hand. Like, of course I'll remember to update my website. It doesn't. Not for me. No.
No, it doesn't for me either.
Yeah, no. So.
All right. So has your agent ever wanted you, or a client, I guess, ever wanted you to work on an unrealistic timeline? And then how do you handle that?
Yeah. So like, there have been times when I have multiple projects and one person is like, we really need this by this time. Like, this is non-negotiable. Like, can you deliver? And it just so happens to be an amazing project. And then I'm like, damn it. And I'm like, oh my God, it's such a cool project. And this is so unrealistic. So then I talk to the other people that I'm working on stuff with, and I see the other art directors or people that I'm working on projects with. I'm like, is there time? Do I have an extra 5 days? Right. Can I get it? Does this need to be in by this date? And I check in with them to make sure. And then luckily people are flexible, and they're like, yeah, we don't need this by this date. You actually have a little more time. We can give you like a week because this hasn't happened or whatever. And then there's sometimes where it's like, no,
you just have to say no.
You just have to do, yeah. And then sometimes I just have to say no. I can't. I made prior commitments to other people, and I can't. And it's been rare that I've had to do that because I will not sleep. And I don't recommend doing this, but there have been times where like I just won't sleep that night just to get this sketch or this proposal out to, or a sample out to an art director. Like, there have been times where I'm like, we really need to see something because we want to pitch you to the team, and we want to have you as an option. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, I'm so excited, but at the same time I'm in a pinch, and I won't sleep that night, or I'll sleep for very few hours. I don't recommend it, but like, there's a rare opportunity that something awesome will come from it, and I'll make the sacrifice and feel like, a zombie that drinks like 18 pounds of coffee the next day, and I had the shakes. I'm like, oh, yeah. So, but that's fine. I'll sleep the next day.
So you'll do an unrealistic for a special, amazing client and an opportunity. Yeah. But it's not something that's happening and you're doing on a weekly basis.
No. Like, if it's something that I'm like, oh, it's a new client, I'll do it. I'll hustle. I used to do it a lot more. Before I had a kid, I was able to do it and just sleep the next day. But like, I can't because, my kid wakes up at like 6:30 or 7. And then I'm just like, please sleep for 10 more minutes. Right. I'm like, no, you're not crying. Oh. And I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, I'll make it work because I'm very excited about the opportunity.
So Doc asks, how often does that pay off?
It's actually come through, luckily. There have been times where I've done that, and sorry about that. There have been times when I've done that, and like, they're like, I haven't heard from them. And that at least like kind of is like, at least let me know they didn't pick me.
Right. Right.
So I have to stop them like, hey, what's up? How did your meeting go or anything? I'm like, crickets, I'm so tired. Yeah. But it has paid off, because then they pitched it and then I've gotten the project. I'm like, oh, goody. Yeah.
But it also sets, especially with a new client, it sets the stage that you're willing to do some things to work with them.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be a continuous, oh, we're always going to screw Angela, you know, right? So she comes for us in a pinch all the time. But hopefully that those are some things that.
That's a great point, that they see that you're willing to work on it. Because I've worked with illustrators that are just flat out like, no. And it's been rare, but there's been a couple of them where they're like, I just can't. And I'm like, darn it. But that's fine. And we'll have to, and they'll work around there are times when we work around the illustrator schedule sometimes, because we really want to work with them. So it's all about teamwork and communication. Like, if you're like, my kid's sick and I really I can't do this. Like, I've worked with art directors that are like, okay, when can you get this to me? I can get this to you tomorrow. That's fine. Like, so just be like as honest as possible. Don't feel bad or anything about telling them what's actually happening. Like, I've actually told people like, hey, I'm going through a divorce right now. Like, and I have so much paperwork to do for my lawyer that I don't, and it has to be in by this time. Can you, and I'm as honest as possible. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm not like lying. I'm not trying to get a special treatment. I'm just being honest about what my current situation is in, current situation is.
Right. I think that is something that sometimes we hold back on what is really going on in our lives, or if you're sick or going through divorce, or your parent is sick or something that we don't really share and don't ask for that extra little gift of time, which maybe they can give it. But obviously you're not always going to have a grandmother dying, you know, every time they come to a project. So hopefully you're setting a really good standard, but it's about having good communication and also being willing to ask. So not having such pride that you can't ask for help.
Exactly. I mean, I love it when people do that and they're like, hey, you know, this is what's happening right now. I'm like, okay, fine. Don't take it, you know, like shit happens in your life. Like, and sometimes you really can't control it. And I try to be as honest, and I love it when people, and I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me. I'll see what I could do and get back to you. And then I'm like, we have more time. To the illustrators, like I can't do it. Right. So and so happened. I broke my leg. I got really sick. Of course, I'm like, as long as it's not your hand. It's not your hand. But okay, yeah. But I appreciate the honesty, and I try to be as honest with people, but I don't take advantage. I don't. Right. Yeah.
So, all right. So as a parent and as a single parent, you have certain non-negotiable things that you can't give up. You can't take certain opportunities become. What are some of those that is having for you? Everybody has maybe different non-negotiables, but is having clarity on what you will and will not do, or will and cannot adjust. Is that helpful in determining if you're going to be able to take on projects that are certain time lengths or that require certain other things like travel, right? For you, that might be something that you're not able to do right now, travel to the UK. But do you know what I mean? I don't know if you would really need to travel over there, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, things that have changed now in my life are me being able to be on site as often. I'm not able, like I get emails from people and they're like, hey, we need you on site for the next 5 weeks. I'm like, I can't do that. But I negotiate and I'm like, can I come in for meetings? And I could come in on this day and I could come in on this day. And usually people are pretty flexible, but there's certain non-negotiables when there's presentations and stuff like that like, we need you here for these meetings. And luckily I've been able to work with really awesome people that are like, we really need you every day. But, you know, if you could even come in for a meeting today, it's just easier to go through everything in person, or we really need you. So like, we could work together. I haven't been able to do those kinds of projects with people are like, we need you here every day with
Right.
working with the team, especially if it's like something that's managing other designers. I can't do that as much right now. I could do a couple days, but it's just a little bit more difficult now that I'm, taking care of my son some days of the week.
Right.
So,
And sometimes things are time. These things that you're talking about now right now are time related.
yes.
And some things are price related. So knowing where you are negotiable in a price kind of situation as well. So knowing that is maybe the time frame's right, but the price is a little bit lower, but you have maybe more time or it's a project that is maybe you think you want to do book covers, or I know you've done book covers, but pretend like you hadn't.
Yes.
Do book covers, or you want to do like your editorial design. So it's kind of introducing a new, I think it's just important to know what your lowest level is for somebody in those, for an art director. You need to be able to tell them what the low range is, if it's somebody who you really do want to work with.
Yeah, exactly. And and also I've found in my career, like there's times when it's really quiet and an awesome project like a great project comes around, and I'm like, fine, I'll take it. And it just so happens that like it doesn't pay exactly what I want it to pay, but it's a cool opportunity. And I'm building a new relationship that could possibly lead to more work down the line. I'll take it. It all depends. For me, each project in my life I have like a bottom that I won't take any less.
Right.
And I communicate that in these instances. I'm like, I can't, because what it works out to, the amount of time that I spend on a project and what it turns out to be hourly is just not going to be worth it for me after I have my own expenses that I have to pay for after taxes, because a lot of these projects aren't taxed. Right. So these are all things that you need to keep in mind when you have your bottom line, what works for you. But like I said, each project is different. It depends on because my schedule is so all over, like it's not so predictable. Mm-hmm. So I reach out to illustrators that I know probably won't take the budget that I have, just as a shot in the dark. And sometimes I've gotten those illustrators to work on projects with me, and sometimes I haven't. Right. And I am the same way as the illustrator. I'm like, that's really low. And if I had other projects that we're paying right now, I wouldn't be able to do it right now because I have other stuff going on. So be open to other things, because you're building relationships always. And you never know who that person or where that person might go down the line. They'll be a creative director for somebody, and now they're a senior designer, but they'll be an art director for another place. Right. So it's always good to just keep that in mind. Relationships are really important.
So Doc has a question, I think, dealing with some of these non-negotiables, or if somebody's asking you to do one of these, hey, I need you to come in this other day. So do those requests come with a higher price, or is there, because more time, something else is being placed on you that is maybe the request wasn't necessarily something that you had planned on or wasn't in the original contract, or maybe it is in the original contract and you're kind of figuring it out. Does that come with a price tag to you? Does that, when they start wanting more of your physical time, I think that's one of the biggest ones right now for you. Yes. If you want more physical time, does that come with a price tag? Do you charge more for those?
I do, because I have to get childcare. Right. So that in itself is going to be a nice chunk of change. I have to pay a nanny to be with my son for the 8 hours that I'm going to be in the office. So I'm definitely more expensive now than I was before I had a child, because I didn't have that expense. And that's like a big, it's expensive. So if you really need
You're not just going to have somebody off the street watching your kid,
No, exactly.
Trust.
Not yet.
He has 4 girls, so he definitely hears you on that part.
Yes.
So, tell me about, what are some of the characteristics of projects that are just good projects that you take on? So this would be things that you regularly look for, that in a normal contract, not people really pushing you on a non-negotiable. So what are characteristics that you specifically, I think everybody's going to be different, but what for you?
What really piques my interest basically in a project? Okay. So, basically if there's hand lettering and it's children's products and we need imagery for certain things, and we also need hand lettered quotes for this. I mean, I'm like all over that, like a wet t-shirt. And when they say that you have, I mean, this is my favorite, and I love hearing this, you have creative liberty to do what you want with this. And I'm like, oh God, yes. I love that. Because it's just really, they're like, we don't really have any idea of like what we want. And we're totally open to your suggestions and different options and I love that because it shows that they're willing, they're really open and, and sometimes when they see what I present and they're like, yeah, no. Or sometimes they're like, we didn't even think of that.
Right.
It's like, we're all like working together. So it's a rare opportunity to have something like that where they're like, we have the time to explore different styles and different ideas. And I love that. So that's really, and if they're like, our budget's not as big, they'll usually compromise. And that's usually it. I'm like, oh, of course. But you get that kind of ability to do what you want to do more. And they're totally receptive to it. So I make compromises.
So like the editorial work that you've gotten recently.
Yeah.
Why was that? Was it the contract? Was it doing editorial because it was different? It was for the audience was right. So like, because those are things I hear you say. So audience is important because you like to do things for kids. So
yes.
What else are you looking for in that contract? Is it time frame? Obviously pay. And then creative liberty is something that you love to hear.
Yes.
Right. So is there anything else, like with that editorial piece, if you got another piece like that, or as the first one, what was something that really piqued for you in that regards?
So they basically said that they saw some samples that I created and they thought it would be perfect for the article that they were working on. And the timeline was average. It wasn't like generous or completely tight.
Right.
And they were flexible because there was an instance where I couldn't get something to them and I just could only deliver a day later and they were fine with it. And we communicated really well. She sent samples. She was really clear as to what they were looking for. That also helps too. They have an idea of what they want for this project and they thought that I would be like a good, I would be able to provide what they needed.
Sometimes having clear art direction is also a really good factor to kind of look.
Oh, it's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, because it's like, they find something specifically in your portfolio that they want, and then they send me other things, like other examples that they're like, this is something that we would like to see in your work. Not exactly, but we're just showing inspiration from other artists. And I do the same thing. Like, hey, like, I've seen this out there, but I think this done in your style will be awesome. Right. So I also do that too, because I don't want the illustrator to think that like, I want you to design something that looks just like this illustrator's work. Like, no, there's just something in there, some flavor in there that I think that you could apply to your work that'll just push it to the edge. And that's really great because when, I've had art directors that just send something and they don't even say anything. And I'm like, oh, so I just have, like, I could come up with a concept. I could do this, which is awesome. And I love doing that. But at the same time, it's just going to be more time on my part. Right. It's going to take more time because not only do I have to show concept in the sketches because I came up with these concepts, I have to do the illustration itself. So that's a whole other component as to where an art director's like, we want this on the cover and this and this and that. And then boom. So those are my sketches. It's your idea, and I could show 3 different variations of what your concept is. And
I'm sure if you're concepting, that's also comes with a price tag too.
It does.
Right? That's something else that now you have to allot time for. It can't be the same price as if you're just taking art direction.
Exactly. It's like you have to put that in your like, oh yeah, so this is like, one fee that you're charging, but like now it's probably going to take how many more hours to come up with the concept.
Right.
So you got to put that all into your fee. And if it's going to take, and then I tell them, I'm like, this is going to take me more time, so I'm going to have to charge more. And then sometimes they'll be like, that's fine. Right. And then sometimes they're like, you know what? No, we'll get the concepts to you.
Right.
Yeah. Like, just don't feel bad about communicating, because I've felt bad in the past, and I'm like, I'll just eat it because this is awesome and I'll just do it. No, just communicate.
Yeah.
And they work with illustrators all the time, and everyone has questions and concerns. And I do too on my end when I work with illustrators.
So I'm going to ask you some sort of faster, hopefully, questions.
Yes.
I know you have had, you're near New York City, so it may be a little bit easier for you to kind of develop relationships with more art directors, physical, like you can go to lunch, or you met with them, or you go to a AIGA event or something.
Yes.
So, and a lot of people don't have that. They're in smaller cities or something. So, what do you have any tactics that you would suggest, maybe in person or not, of how people could possibly start relationships with somebody that they actually met?
Start relationships with they actually met, like, okay.
Because you're in New York, so there may be more opportunities creatively to go to meetups or creative mornings or things like that. Obviously, with a child, you can't really do that all the time.
No.
But that kind of is where there's the opportunity, but you just can't because of the time constraints. But what about where people don't really have as many opportunities? How would you suggest, because I still think some face-to-face, is there conferences that you think are worthwhile, that or other kind of meetups that people could plan or should plan to participate in, so that, or maybe workshops, or I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I know there's a bunch of different ones all over the United States. Like, I know there's the Icon in the Pacific Northwest. I should really go to these things. I'm not really.
But maybe not yet, because you're
not yet.
The situation, right?
But I've never really wanted to go to these things because I'm not so extroverted. I've been trying to train myself to be.
I think you're doing great.
Thank you. I'm always like, that's a lot of people in a room. I don't know how I feel about that.
I think a lot of designers and illustrators have that, it is a hindrance, because they do feel really overwhelmed by that.
It is, and it's a lot of energy, and I'd rather just be here drawing and doing my own thing and posting on social media. But it's really good to get yourself in these places, and it doesn't have to be something as large as Icon. It could be like smaller meetups with other illustrators in your area on meetup.org, or Working Not Working does, like, you have to be approved to get into the site, but they have, like, they're starting to do little meetups with local illustrators and designers. It's because then these illustrators know other people, they see your work, and they're exposed to you. It's all about exposure. And when you make these contacts, it's important to exchange information. Like, I'll take somebody's card, and I'll put them on my mailing list, or, I'll try to remind myself to email them in my little calendar invite. Email so-and-so from da-da-da-da. Like, this
that's a great
list
idea.
Is like so long. Yeah. And you don't want to scare yourself, because sometimes I'm like, oh crap, look at how long, I'm never going to do this. Right. So, like, sometimes I just break them up. Like, I'm going to send out personal emails to people and see how they're doing, and if there's anything that I could do to help them out, versus sending a mailing. Right. So I'll have two different, actually, I need to find that email, that calendar invite, because I need to bring it to the current stage of my life. But it's good to have these movable parts, because you could just kind of like shift and move and copy and pick, that really helps me. Because, I can't remember all the people, but I know at that time. So my trick is to immediately write it down as soon as you remember. Don't say you're going to do it later, because you're not. Right. I won't, because I'm going to forget. So as long as it's in the digital calendar, I'm going to remember it, that it's written down somewhere. Okay. So
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this is another kind of quick question, I think.
Yes.
So how often do you play on or off the computer with drawing tools or new techniques?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would like to, but like,
But
I've
I
been
think
trying
that
to
that's good
focus.
to know, because I think
Yeah.
that's something everybody struggles with, right?
Yeah, like I buy things all the time and then I never use them. And like I spent $100 on those markers and I haven't used them, but I see them and I feel guilty every time I see them, and that guilt propels me to use them. So I'll leave them there and they're just staring at me, and then I have like 10 minutes and I just start drawing with them, and that's fine because it doesn't have to be like I'm sitting here for 4 hours exploring
Right.
the wonderfulness that are these markers and paint and everything. No, like, and that's what I put all this pressure on myself.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be that way. Wake up, lady. So like I have my markers here and I'm like, ooh, I have 10 minutes. Like, awesome. So I'm just going to like draw something, and awesome. I just use the markers and I don't have to feel guilty anymore.
So this is something else I think people feel guilty about
Yes.
and I'm one of them.
Yes.
So you created this awesome toaster self-promotion a
Yes.
few years ago. Do you create a new promotion every year? So I know like Josh Lewis, he creates like a mailer, just like a postcard mailer or a
Yeah.
little booklet or something every 3 months. So it's four
That's
times a year or
awesome.
3 times a year. But sometimes
Good.
that seems like way too much. Like I don't know if I could do that. So how often are you doing that? And like that toaster calendar was really intense. Like that would have been a lot of, it would have been expensive, and it would have possibly, so obviously you're not sending it to 200 people. So you're
No.
having a more, niche down list. But how often are you coming up with that? Because that's something I haven't really incorporated into my schedule, and I know I need to, but I don't know. So how often do you do that?
I wrote off that toaster calendar for like 2 years.
Okay.
So much work. And I sent it, like I sent it out to new people. And then some people actually asked for it again. They're like, do you have like, the 2018 version of this? Cause it was awesome. And I really liked it. Awesome. Yes, I'll send it to you again. So, but I think it's important to send something at the end of the year. Like there have been times where I've been so pinched because it's so crazy. Not only are the holidays coming along, everybody wants to get everything done by the end of the year. You have your own personal life going on, and there's projects that people are trying to wrap up by the end of the year.
Right.
So it's like a tsunami of stuff happening all at once. So it's good to plan if you want to do a mailer, or like, you want to do a calendar or a fold out or something unique, or something that like they'll want to hang up on their wall so they'll remember you. But I didn't do that last year.
So ideally, if you do it once every 2 years, you think that that's especially if it's a bigger thing, and these are for new potential clients,
yes,
or people that you've made contacts with that haven't ever used you, right?
Yeah. And I try to do something once a year.
Okay.
And then I try to send emails in between.
Okay.
Because not only is printed material, it's expensive, and it's time consuming, like, and so many people are just in the digital world anyway, but I like to do at least sending something physical to my contacts once a year.
Okay. Here's another quick one. I know we have like 5 minutes left.
Yes.
We're doing great. All right. So what's something you've learned this year that's been a game changer? And I know you've had a lot of personal things going on too. So it could be personal, or it could be professional. So what's something that you've learned that's been a game changer?
To ask for help. It's very difficult for me because I never like to ask anybody for help. And it's something that I know why I have a problem asking for help, but now, and I'm like, girl, you need to like put that crap aside. And when you need help, you need to ask for help. So I have a sister that lives not too far away. And I also have an Airbnb that I manage. And there have been times where like I get a call from the maid and she's like, the toilet's clogged and it's a hot mess in here. And I'm home working, or I'm in the office working. And then my sister's home and I'm like, can you please go? Because I have someone checking in at 3:00 to the condo. And normally I wouldn't have done that. Normally I probably would have just left. But, you have to, because people ask me for help, and if I can, I will. Right. And I need to start, and I'm starting to do that, asking neighbors. Like, I need to run out, my son's asleep and I need to go pick something up or whatever. Like, they're like, okay, fine. It takes a community to like, to survive, really.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad about asking. I mean, you don't want to be that person that's constantly asking for favors, because, you know, then people are going to be less inclined to help you.
But you also can't be the person who's never giving favors, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you ask, you also have to be willing to help, and which I think you are. So
Yes.
it's just about having a balance. So this kind of feeds into that next question, which may be the same answer. So how is your time management? You've told us a lot of time management stuff today, especially marketing tips, which I think is awesome. I'm so excited. I have so many notes already on my paper, and I have so many things that are starred. I am too. All right. So this is how. So how is how is your time management while you juggle being a mom and an entrepreneur? So, because sometimes I would think you would get ideas when you're with your son. Do you take notes on your phone with Siri? How are you juggling just being a single mom and being an entrepreneur?
You know, you just, I mean, you just have to, like I said, ask for help. And then sometimes there's going to be nobody there to help you. And there have been times where I had to get a file out and it was an emergency, and I had my son, and he basically played with Bed Bath & Beyond coupons for like the whole time. I have a serious stash of Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, and he's just like, this is amazing. And he played for a whole hour with these coupons. So like, be as flexible. You'd be surprised how life kind of, you know, things like, this is not an ideal situation to have my son here while I'm working but it worked, and it's fine. So be as flexible as you possibly can, and you'll be surprised what happens when you are flexible. You're like, oh, now I know that if I give Maddox Bed Bath & Beyond coupons to play with, I'll probably have an hour to do what I need to do. Or he's not interested in these coupons anymore.
Or it's having something, so some sort of hidden toy that he's never played with, or some sort of game or something that he could do on his own that he doesn't get to do very often.
Yeah.
Then that way really he savors it, so it takes time for him, right?
Time. And there's these stressful situations have shown me what I'm capable of doing. Like, if these stressful situations didn't come up, I didn't know I could do that with Maddox. Like, I didn't know I could ask my neighbor for help, because I'm like, what am I going to, I really need someone here right now. What am I going to do? And now we open that line of communication. Like, stressful situations are always like, there's an awesome part and there's a bad, like a crappy part, because it's a stressful situation. But like, I swear there's always some insight that has come from that. Because you're like in a corner, and I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then you take that and you're like, awesome, now I know what to do, and it's not going to be as stressful anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that sometimes stressful situations make you reach out to the people who are around you, and they want to help you. They just didn't know you needed help, right?
It's true, you know, and then they're in a similar situation where like, oh my God, my flight's delayed and my cat hasn't eaten all day. Are you home? And I'm like, yes, I will go feed your adorable cat and hang out with your cat for 10 minutes because I can right now.
Right.
Like things like that. And we have that, you know, like, I'm just going to check in on you to see if like you need anything or whatever. But it's important to have that sense of community, especially right now for me, because, you know, like I'm going through divorce. And so like, it feels so good to have that like backup. And I feel good to be able to provide that for other people when I can, because I love helping people too, you know, if I can.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things you had said, we had talked about having goals, and so I think just being able to move forward, especially in kind of rotten times of your life, it's really important to have goals. And last time you had said, oh, I want to do some editorial work. That's always been a goal. And now you have some.
Yeah.
So what's a new goal for you?
I want to get a book published in 2019. I really want to.
One that you make?
Yes.
And you write too?
Yes. I'm going to try.
That's awesome.
It's a big goal, but like I think it could happen.
Do you plan that stuff in? Like, do you already have time for writing or time for illustrating?
Yes.
And then you kind of have a time frame of when you want that project, or when you want to start shopping that around to different publishers?
I do. I have like a rough timeline, and like I don't set like the overall goal of when I'll it helps me. You know what? scratch that. It really does help me, because if I'm like, I want to pitch this by the end of the year and I want to pitch this in October, I'll know I could work backwards from that. It's easiest for me to do that, to think of like, oh, wait, where's the final of this project? Like, and where's like the ultimate goal where I want to get this to by the end of the year. And that is it. And then I could work backwards, and then I'll make time, like, you know, a couple hours on the weekend. And then I'll also make a calendar invite and put that in there, or put Post-its all over my computer to constantly remind myself. But those calendar invites with the reminders are so helpful. It's like, work on your book, work on your book every hour. And then I'll like torture myself, because I'll be like, I'm going to put 5 notifications on that invite. So I can't get sidetracked. I'm doing laundry, because I know myself. Right. And then I'm like, find Angela from 2 weeks ago. God, I'll go to my desk and work on my illustration.
So I think so you're really doing your schedule about 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
And you're booking out things so that you know what is going on, and you have these goal jobs, these personal projects scheduled in. And I think that's
you have to. Yeah, because it's like the week just gets away, because sometimes I don't do that, and like I'll have a day where I'm working from home and I forgot to plan the night before, and I sit here and I'm like, ooh, I love these earrings on Etsy, this is amazing. And it's like 3:00 and I'm like, what? Because I didn't make a plan for myself the day before. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I know myself. So I have to plan. And I have to put it on the calendar, because then I feel guilt because I wrote it down and I didn't execute. So.
Well, and that also helps you move forward, right? Even if it's even if it's a small
baby
task.
Steps.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to feel like I need to work. Like I said before, like it doesn't have to be a 4-hour increment, because that's what I put on myself, and it doesn't need to be that heavy. Like it could just be a half hour, and you get like, if you have that half hour of focus, you'd be surprised how far you could go sometimes, where like I give myself a 3-hour slot and I feel like I barely did anything, because I'm like, I know I have 3 hours.
Right. So I actually found you on LinkedIn, and that was me and you connected, I think, there.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And then, and to me, you had posted something. It was well written, and the illustration or the lettering was amazing.
Thank you.
It could have been both. But I remember being so, that it was this full package. So it wasn't just a post without text, that you were thinking about all these things. So I am so excited that I got to know you. I'm getting to know you, I guess. And I am going to make sure everybody knows, if you didn't catch her last time, you can always go to her website, which is signorinaNavarra.com. I'm going to spell it SIGNORINANAVARRA. All these will be in the show notes under the YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're in iTunes, it's in the description, so you can get all that. It's all there. And then you can also find her. She has stuff on sale at Etsy, etsy.com/slop, not slop, shop /Doodaa Studio, DOODAA Studio, STUDIO. And then you can find her on Instagram at Signorina_Navarra, and then on LinkedIn at Angela Navarra. So all those are in the chat, and they will also all be underneath. So Angela, thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing. I mean, I wrote a ton of notes all over. I needed more, and I feel like we got our questions done. So I hope you guys, Doc, thanks for writing some questions in the chat. I hope that you guys enjoy. Next week for me is just a rapid recharge. I'm going to talk about some things that I'm going to be working on, and I will have the Patreon up. It is going to happen. It is close. It will be there next week. I know it's right before Thanksgiving, but that's going to be my contribution to the thing. Is I'm going to give you a little some things that I've been working on, and I'm definitely going to implement so many of these things that you said today, because I think I'm just kind of scattered, and I'm not doing some of the things that are really making an impact to some of the goals that I have. Yeah. Angela, I can't tell you how much you've inspired me today.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Yay.
I'm really thankful. So guys, you can always follow me at Design Recharge on Twitter or Instagram. And I'm working on a little project that I did, the mid-century modern thing with Brad Woodard and Dustin Lee from Retro Supply. So hopefully I'll be posting that on C. Diane Gibbs. That's a letter C, because that's my first name, starts with a C. And so that's Brad Woodard is the next one after my rapid recharge. So on the 28th, after Thanksgiving, we'll have Brad Woodard on. And I'm excited to introduce you to another designer / illustrator that's really doing a lot of stuff in a retro feel. And he has a lot of different income streams. And so I think that's one thing, Angela, you've done. You haven't just gotten all your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying different things, but he's doing it in a different way. So I'm excited to have him on, and I hope you guys will join us. So, Angela, thank you. Thank you for being honest.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
So you just really have. You've inspired me in a ton of different ways. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Okay, awesome.
Well, we'll see you guys next week. It'll be just me, but I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.